I feel like it's incredibly hard to avoid the sequel whenever discussing which Assassin's Creed game is the best of all time. It's almost always the answer you hear, along with some saying Brotherhood and Black Flag, and the occasional newcomer who will say Odyssey. However, it's extremely clear that the sequel does something that the rest of the games don't, and that's what I want to talk about today. Of course, all opinions in this video are my own, and you're free to object to any claims that I make, but this is my general observation through playing the games and looking at the community responses. There are three main reasons why I think the second installment is usually the beloved one, and each of those reasons lists an attribute that no game in the franchise was able to pull off as well. I'll list them off as the video goes on, but the first reason is the Assassin Fantasy. Now, this might seem like a silly point, especially to people who have service level knowledge of the franchise. But doesn't every Assassin's Creed game go for an Assassin Fantasy? Why is 2 so special? Yeah, and I guess every installment does go for it, but I don't think any of them achieve it as well as AC2 did. The direction Assassin's Creed 2 went for, which seemingly no other game did, was spread the game out throughout 40 years. While most AC characters see themselves delving into being an assassin through circumstances that made the Brotherhood seem favorable, AC2 decided to make the player an assassin before making Ezio one. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. Ezio starts off by wanting nothing to do with the Brotherhood, deeming it to be an ancient war spun by old men with nothing better to do. However, he seeks vengeance, and ultimately shares a similar enemy with the Brotherhood due to the death of his family. The player is given assassin robes, the player gets taught how to utilize stealth, the player gets taught how to fight a horde of enemies, all before the main character becomes an actual assassin. And in the end, his reason for killing the men that he kills isn't for vengeance anymore, but it's for the betterment of Italy. The game's choice to give you these mechanics in sequence 3 and 4 and make you an official assassin in sequence 11 isn't pure coincidence. No, it's the game wanting the player to be an assassin and then making the character one. This unique design choice makes playing as a member of the Brotherhood feel much more real and authentic, and it's something that only Black Flag does after, which is also a favorite installment. Now, this one should be more obvious, but the second reason why people loved AC2 was the aesthetic. Now, when I say aesthetic, I don't mean just the setting, by the way. I'm talking about everything. Soundtrack, characters, game design choices, art style, I mean everything. The game takes place in the Italian Renaissance, and holy shit does the game make you feel like it. It will do a lot to remind you of it. There's interesting historical events inside the assassin story, inserting famous characters like Leonardo da Vinci and Machiavelli, and making them prominent side characters, and even making the graphics intentionally look like oil paintings from an old Renaissance art piece. Side note, one of the biggest reasons I believe that this game was the last passion project Ubisoft ever made is because of that, the graphics. The oil painting effect makes the graphics look way worse, and it was something that the company got a lot of backlash for. Even if you compare this game with the first looks way better, but the second compromises fidelity with aesthetic, which is something that you'll never find in AAA studios nowadays. It's also something that the remaster messes up, and it kind of trades that, aesthetic with fidelity, and it kind of makes the game look way more photorealistic, which is fine if that's the thing you're looking for, but it ruins the whole art direction for the setting. Anyway, back to the original point. Something that this game also took from the first aesthetically was making Assassin's Creed not a historical fiction game, but a sci-fi game at the heart. Alongside Ezio, you play as Desmond, who plays Ezio through a machine that can read DNA and project your ancestors' memories. And wouldn't you know it, Desmond's ancestor is Ezio. The shift between the two characters is incredibly jarring, as the historical section is much more faster paced and hectic, whereas the modern day section is much more slower and character driven. How does this aid the aesthetic though? Good question to me. The slow and very sci-fi based sections of Desmond works excellent with the super fast paced parts of Ezio, because both of their stories need each other. And this correlation serves the game's genre, which is a mixture of historical fiction and science fiction. Because both sections' aesthetics are totally different, it makes the stories and their awareness of each other way more powerful. Forget Assassin's Creed, no other game had ever masterfully combined these two aesthetics and made them work as well as they did. Of course, there are pacing issues with the Desmond sections, but the game slowly making both these stories overlap is nothing short of amazing. And now, here I present to you the biggest reason why I think Assassin's Creed 2 resonates with most people. It's the main character, Ezio Auditore.
Tu sei un uditore, sei un combattente, perciò combatti.
years ago, I stood where I stand now. Watched my loved ones die. Betrayed by those I had called friends. Vengeance clouded my mind. Would have consumed me. Were it not for the wisdom of a few strangers. Who taught me to look past my instincts. They never preached answers. Guided me to learn from myself. We don't need anyone to tell us what to do. Not Savonarola, not the Medici. We are free to follow our own path. There are those who will take that freedom from us. Too many of you gladly give it. But it is our ability to choose whatever you think is true that makes us human.
Get it over with, then.
No. Killing you won't bring my family back. I'm done.
One of the biggest ways you get audiences to be attached to the character is watching them grow. There are thousands of people who adore super long sitcoms like The Office, or super long book series like Harry Potter, or hell, even super long animes like Naruto, mainly because you watch the character grow and achieve what they've been fighting for their whole life. You see this character turn from this foolish little kid who lost in his own thoughts, turn into this man who finally has it all figured out. And it feels good because you watched him grow. Assassin's Creed 2 is the only game in the series to achieve this feeling, and funny enough, it's the shortest one in the series too. I mentioned this before, but you watch Ezio be born, you watch Ezio spend his younger days with his family doing stupid things someone younger would do, and you watch Ezio mourn, fall, and finally turn into his own person, his own assassin. This is a perfect mixture of telling a story about a character's personal, internal struggles, while telling a story about a war between two factions, is something that AC2 undoubtedly did better than any single installment in the franchise, and something that Ubisoft have tried replicating over and over again, but never really succeeded on. There's probably a couple questions to be had in this video, like why I didn't count the whole trilogy and just AC2, but I think there's good reasons for that. I simply don't believe the mini-sequels to AC2 starring Ezio are as beloved as 2 was. Brotherhood comes close, but I see 2 as way more of a passion project than Brotherhood, especially considering that the man who created the series left after the release of the sequel. However, I really do think that these 3 things are why most people generally tend to recognize this game as the best one in the series, and why Ezio continues to be the poster boy of the franchise. No other game in the series was able to attach us as close to the character, and no other installment was able to garner as much love as AC2 did. I really hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see y'all later. Good night.